Log Horizon, Volume 2, Chapter 1, Part 4.
Twins, huh? How about that? And then?
And then what? Do you not know what happened to them after that, my liege? After Shiroi told them about his meeting with the twins just to make conversation, they hit him with that question. The orange light from the fire threw their wavering shadows onto the hilltop tent, and the mood in the camp was peaceful. They're on my friend list. I've seen them several times since the catastrophe, actually.
So they did get pulled in, huh?
We were together right up until it happened, so yes. We were all sent back to Akiba, but then we got separated. I was teleported from a ruin as well. In the instant the catastrophe occurred, all the players seemed to have been forcibly relocated to the nearest town. As if they'd remembered that, both Sarada and Nyanta looked thoughtful.
You should have said something to them,
Naotsugu said.
I bet they've got it pretty rough. Amateurs getting caught up in something like this.
All the members of the debauchery tea party had been good at looking out for people. Some had been better than others, but among them, Shiroi remembered, Naotsugu had been particularly good at making sure the newer players were taken care of. I guess you can't really be a guardian, the guy who protects everybody, if you're not good at looking after people. Although in Naotsugu's case, I think the way he talks puts him at a disadvantage. Even if he treated Akatsuki like a kid, then got need for it, every time a battle broke out, Naotsugu was the sort of guy who'd do his absolute best to make sure his companions went unharmed.
Well, you had a lot going on too, didn't you, Shiroichi?
As he spoke, Nyanta poured hot tea into his tin mug. It wasn't real tea, he'd said, just a mixture of herbs and dried apple peel. Even that makeshift blend felt like a blessing to Shiroi and the others, who'd only drunk plain water for so long. Akatsuki was holding her cup in both hands to warm them, as if it was something very precious. True. For the first few days we were pushed to the limit, and I didn't have the leeway to think about much else. Besides, the next time I saw them, they'd both joined a guild. To be accurate, Shiroi hadn't been the only one who hadn't had any leeway. None of the players had. No one had the energy to even think about anyone besides themselves.
Oh, yeah?
The recruiting was aggressive back then. At Akatsuki's words, Naotsugu nodded, saying,
Now that you mention it, what were they, level 20? That or close?
I think they've probably leveled up a bit more by now.
Then joining a guild was probably their best move. I mean, they barely knew right from left.
As Naotsugu spoke, he stretched hugely and, in the same motion, turned completely around to face Shiroi.
So, was that Minori girl cute? What?
Now that he thought about it, Shiroi had only looked at the twins closely when Elder Tales was still a game. At the time, they'd only been nothing more than polygon models on a screen, so there'd be no way to tell whether Minori was cute or not. Since he hadn't spoken to them face to face since the catastrophe, it wasn't the sort of question he could answer.
Yeah, that. Forget about that. You used voice chat, right? Couldn't you tell from her voice whether she was cute or not?
Even after Shiroi told him he didn't know, Naotsugu persisted. Akatsuki seemed a bit disgusted by their conversation. She just looked at them coldly as if to say, "Good grief, there they go again." When Shiroi glanced at Nyanta as a last resort, hoping for help from her reprisal, Nyanta was busy being chivalrous.
Saradachi, aren't you getting a bit chilled?
But even as Shiroi thought it wouldn't hurt Nyanta to spare a few scraps of that chivalry for his old friend, Naotsugu pressed him further. If I had to say yes she was cute or no she wasn't, I'd say... Look, I really don't know. When she talked, she sounded feminine and polite, as if she'd been well brought up, you know? Maybe. I thought she might have been from a family with good breeding, although not quite like Henrietta's family. As Shiroi explained, remembering as he spoke, Naotsugu nodded along at almost every word. He seemed incredibly happy.
Well, sure, that's just how middle school girls should be.
Heck, why specify an age range? Stupid Naotsugu. He nodded, agreeing with Akatsuki. Absolutely. But immediately afterward, she told him, "You're being ridiculous too, my liege."
When we get back, let's check up on them. Date City! I'll be the vanguard. You're the wingman, Shiroi. Girls are so great.
Well, we agree on that, I guess.
So you do like panties, huh, Shiro?
No, I don't. I'm no more interested in panties than the average guy. Even as he thought this was turning into a hassle, Shiroi agreed to Naotsugu's proposal. The hassle came not from having to contact the twins, but from having to take verbal jabs from Naotsugu, and there was no help for that. Naotsuku had been getting bullied by Akatsuki lately, and so even Shiroya was sympathetic. After that, their fireside party continued late into the night. They spoke tirelessly about guilds and each other, about delicious food in this world's starry sky, and the night grew later and later. The 5 adventurers' laughter echoed over the orange flames, and the first flavorful meal they'd eaten in ages. It was so pleasant that no one was willing to speak up to end the experience. It was gentle and comfortable, and they didn't want it to be over. Akatsuki and Serara had begun to nod off, leaning against each other. It was adorable, and even Naotsuku, who was always getting mauled by one of the pair, smiled wryly and draped a blanket over them. By the time Nyanta finally declared it time for bed, the eastern sky had already begun to gray.
Ah, man, did I eat. I haven't had food that awesome in ages. Would have been worth the trip to Ezo just to get that meal. Yeah, all trips should be like this.
Naotsuku's steps were a bit unsteady from his fatigue and full belly, but the words he murmured were exactly what everyone was feeling. The 5 of them curled up in their sleeping bags and drifted off to sleep in the warmth of the fire. To read along with audio light novel Log Horizon, buy the book. Link in the description.